single day since March 25th of 2020. Jason Bass in Albuquerque, New Mexico is our reader today. Jason, what have we got?
Scott Hancock in Tokyo asks, recommendations for lightweight headset with better mic than Sennheiser HMD46, looking for better sound from simul interpreters.
Ronnie Hostway is going to help you out here. Ronnie, what do you got?
Or simultaneously interpretation.
It's our pre-show debate in the panel.
I know this MD46 is kind of popular for intercom use, where the voice is kind of protruding beyond everything else, and it also has a noise cancellation, active noise cancellation on it, which, in my opinion, is causing a lot of the frequency, the deeper voice that you hear in the typical podcast microphones. And if you're going to add some of the full width of the frequency response from a voice, and if this is going to be used professionally, I understand the reluctance of using the MD46. The times I've used it is it's really good for intercom, but it's kind of a problem going with good voice. So what I would suggest you take a look at is the Biodynamic DT797. I've listened to this. I haven't been using this, but I have been in the other end listening to the people using this DT797, and it's very deep. It's full. It's rich voice and very pleasant to listen to. So. There are, of course, a lot of other microphones. It depends on what the scenario is. Is these interpreters sitting in a noisy room? Are they sitting inside booths? Are they in their home where the room is noise processed? In that case, they could easily be using some of the kits that we are sending out to interpreters, which is consisting of Shure NV6s or NV7s, or similar, and just use their normal headphones to listen to the floor language. But if they need to use a headset, you should be sure to select a headset that has probably a dynamic, good quality microphone, and the 797 is what I suggest.
Next question.
John Foltz in Selinsgrove, Pennsylvania asks, I have a Magewell encoder and a Birddog PTZ camera. The Birddog was recently serviced, and when it came back, it seems to have the same MAC address as the encoder. What's going on? How do I troubleshoot and fix this?
Alex Lindsay, do you have some suggestions?
It seems so unlikely that they be the same. It's two different devices. I don't know how you would end up with two of the same MAC address. The chances of that happening are so low because the number of addresses available is so high. I would be careful to look at if you have a router that will tell you what's connected to it. So, like with the Ubiquiti router that I have, it'll tell you every device that's connected, and you can ping its MAC address, or you can display that. Make sure that it's really the same. I think that there's something that your router has decided it's something, but I don't think it actually is that. It may be relating to them as the same unit, but the chances of the MAC address actually being changed, and then the chance of it being changed is very low. If they replaced a part that did that, then maybe that would be the case. But the chances of being the same as the other one is astronomically low. So I think it's something in your router that's identified them both as the same. It's saying that they're the same, but I don't think that they actually are. So find something that can investigate the MAC address, because I don't think you're going to find they're the same.
Next question.
Pedro G. Gonzalez in Nashville, Tennessee asks, what is the average day rate for a freelance AV techs, A1s, V1s, LDs in Nashville?
Ronnie Hansoy is going to try to help us out here. Ronnie?
Yeah, I don't know about Nashville since I'm on the other side of the world. But the normal rate here in our part of the world, which is Northern Europe, is from, let's say, $50 a day, up to 10 hours, and that is the starting point. And I'm not sure if the LD is a lighting director in this context or a lighting designer, but designers tend to get a lot less from $1,100, $1,200 and up for a 10-day workday. And A1s, it depends. If it's a big broadcast show, of course, there's a lot more to it. So those numbers were the starting points.
Alex Lindsay.
Yeah, I would say probably I would expect those numbers to be about $100 more. So about $650 or $700 to start with in Nashville, and then it would just go up. And it really depends on after that base price, base cost. It just depends on who the person is, what their expectations are. I do usually ask them for their, I'm going to ask them for what their rate is. I'm not going to tell them what the rate is. I ask them what their rate is. And then if I don't have it in the budget, I'll tell them, oh, that's a little bit higher than our budget, allowed. But usually I budget pretty carefully so that I have room to work with, that I can get good people in there. The reason I don't just tell people what it is because some people will take it, but then they take it and kind of just like, and I look at it, they're like, oh, I'm doing this job, I'm kind of feeling it. I don't want to be that person, because they don't do the best work. And usually if I'm going out somewhere to hire someone, I'm usually looking for the best work I can get.
Chris Fenwick.
It's interesting. The way Pedro asked this question, it sounds more like he's just getting like general pool people, from a union supplier. I'm with you, Alex. I liked it. Thanks, God. I like asking somebody what their rate is. And I'll tell you, the biggest privilege ever is to have somebody go, well, I want this much, and say, I can't pay you that, but I will pay you more.
Yeah.
But I will pay you more. And if you have the ability, if you've budgeted for something and somebody is underselling themselves and they're capable of doing it, you get the best performance out of somebody when you do that. They're like,
we had this issue when we started working in Moscone. We have Local 16, and there's not a lot you can do with the rates in Local 16. But what we did do was that at first we would get cut off. We would have we'd have a whole team, and then they go, oh, I got called onto another call or whatever, and we get pulled off the call. They just pull them off the call and go to something else, right? And because it was a big show, it was usually Dreamforce or something like that. And so we learned that number one is we trained a lot of the folks out. We did free trainings on how to use Blackmagic switchers and how to use other things. So we were able to kind of meet all the folks and figure out who's good, who's attentive, and everything else. And then the second thing that we did is we did must-haves for everyone. So that gives everybody like an extra, like $5 an hour, $8 an hour, something like that. But it also has them understand that we've chosen them. It's not like we're just filling a spot. So it was all must-haves. Then we would do a 1-hour walk-away break, but we'd feed them. And so that, and we did all these things. And what ended up happening is we were then the priority. We were the priority to, like, everyone wanted to be on our team, because it was just a good team to be on. It was kind of a grown up team, and everyone got taken really good care of. And we got we had much better work, when we did that.
And food is powerful.
Yeah, the Moscone food. It was the Moscone food. It's not like you can't bring anything else in, but it was as powerful as Moscone food can be.
Courtney Gooden, you wanted to weigh in?
Well, if you want to kind of get a handle on what rates are for union rates, you can look up the Area Standards Agreement for ITSE in the area that you're looking at. You'll find a document online that has the last contract, which ends in 2024. The new contract has not been printed yet. But you'll find these charts in there for both television and features, and there's the effective dates that this contract covers, which is 22 through 24, and they're organized by different areas. Here's Maine, Massachusetts, New Hampshire, and somewhere in there you'll find one that probably covers Nashville. So you can kind of get a rate on what the union rates are in that neighborhood, and then kind of gauge what those are the union minimums, and then kind of gauge what the daily rates are for the non-union people, because they will probably be pretty competitive with the minimum wage for the union people at the Area Standards Agreement, not the Basic Agreement, which is usually much higher. So look for the Area Standards Agreement.
I wonder if GPT has absorbed all that stuff, and if you asked it, might give you some averages for Nashville specifically. Who knows? Next question.
Andre Dolay in Berlin asks, I just discovered IPMX as the open standard for Pro AV. Any opinions or experience? And he includes the link ipmx.io.
Courtney Gooden.
Well, I took a brief look at this. It's kind of complex. Whether it will catch on is the big question. You know, there have been standards format that collect different containers and different data arrangements and metadata and so on before, you know, MXF, you know, there's been many along the route. This is designed to use an IP. It incorporates both 2110 and AES-EBU and a variety of other standards. These are the features of it. It goes to 4K and, quote, beyond. It does subframe timing accuracy, synchronization or synchronous or asynchronous connection. It has flexibility. It can scale with any bandwidth from 1G to 25G plus for mobile bandwidth. It has discovery and recognition, interoperable with USB, HDCP, and security. So it'll carry protected. It can carry protected content and encoded content. Supposedly, it's an open format developed by an independent nonprofits with no access fees and open to everyone. That might be the key to its success if there's no licensing fees or no royalties due on it. Whether it has a lot of manufacturers behind it, whether it requires, it comes from the Alliance of IP Mobile Solutions. Media Solutions, IP Media Solutions. That's what AIMS stands for. So they're the organization that's promoting it, and whether or not everybody gets in and agrees on a standard. The problem is when you try and get an international standard together, there's always people that disagree, and we wanted to do this, and we wanted to do this, and pretty much after you put in all these variations that are going to accommodate everybody's requests, then it's a moving standard, and a moving standard is as good as no standard because it's never up to date and never handles everybody exactly the same. So it's always a problem.
Next question.
Paul Walhus in Austin, Texas asks, for remote interviews, what are the most effective non-technical instructions for a participant to improve their listening and framing? How can they use only household items and their laptop/phone camera for a better shot?
Nigel Dessau is going to help you out here. Nigel?
Yeah, so I always have the conversation with people. I had this last week with somebody that 70% of the effectiveness of your communication is what you look like, 23% is what you sound like, and 7% what you say is. So unless you give yourself a really good look and sound, then you're throwing away 93% of the effectiveness. That if that doesn't work, I take a picture of what they look like and send that to them. We then talk about, the rules of thirds. And if I can get them to roughly understand the rules of thirds, at least for framing, it starts to look better. But mostly what I think I ask them to do is go and get a bunch of books, if they have books or boxes, and try and get their camera, particularly on their PC or Mac, so they're looking directly into it. And once we've got there, then the rest starts to get easier from that.
Chris Fenwick.
I agree. If you think about it, nobody wants to feel dumb. Nobody wants to be talked to using words they don't understand, but they feel that they should, so they're not going to say, I don't understand what you're saying. So I avoid any technical terms at all. I never use something like, well, let's fix your headroom. I don't know what that means if I'm not in this business. So I avoid all language about from our industry. What the easiest thing I say to people is I say, look, I'd rather not see your ceiling and I don't want to see your floor. So let's work on that, and then we'll get your head in the right spot. During the pandemic, I would love to say, if your house is anything like mine, you have a few spare empty Amazon boxes around. Go grab a couple of those. We're going to try and lift your camera up. And I just avoid all technical words, and it makes for a more easygoing conversation.
Ronnie Hofsoy.
Yeah, or even shoe box. If it's a female, you make sure she has some shoe boxes stuffed away. Another thing is to always sit towards the light. So Of course, avoid having the windows behind you if this is during daytime. If it's nighttime, it probably doesn't be that important. Another thing is, of course, make sure the room is as non-reverberant as possible. Get some sheets or whatever, clothing, thick carpets, etc., to place on hard surfaces. Avoid sitting in the bedspreads, etc. Avoid sitting in a room where there is a lot of hard surfaces like big windows, etc. And as already said, have the camera in the eye level, and make sure you have a microphone as close as possible. Then your MacBooks Pros, etc., have a really good microphone system set up. It's still not as good as separate microphones, but using household items is bedspreads and kind of carpeted surfaces. That's what I would do.
Don't forget the show is run by your questions. You can ask them, chat about them, and vote on those questions in Mukana. That's our Q&A system. Go to officehours.global/join. We'll send you an email within a day or two. Once you've done that, you can ask, vote on, and discuss the show's questions in our live community. It's a lot of fun. There's people always caught chatting about things, and actually there's a lot of really useful information in there. That's officehours.global/join. Next question.
Brian Carney in Wheaton, Illinois asks, does anyone have any experience using Kapwing specifically for AI translations?
Alex Lindsay.
I haven't seen it. I'm just looking at the website here, and it's pretty interesting. It does obviously a lot of translations. One of the things I noticed in the pricing, I don't know what it means yet, is that it says that it will generate up to 30 minutes of lip-synced videos per month for this level here. I don't know. I don't know if that's talking about doing the type of lip synced, stuff we've seen where it not only translates it but puts new words in and makes the adjustment. I don't know if that's what it's doing or not. But it looks like a fairly full-featured way to get translations. The big thing I would always remind everybody is always know somebody who speaks the language to look at your translation. The computer is great, but it's really easy for it to, make mistakes. So that's the only thing I would say. But it looks like a very easy to use, relatively good priced version of it. I haven't needed to do this because usually when I'm doing it, I need it live. But it does look like an interesting product.
Chris Fenwick?
The lip sync thing, I'd love to see what it does with like old kung fu movies.
Yeah, that'd be funny.
Translation of a translation of a translation. We've all felt that.
I mean, I think that it was one of those Star Trek moments when we saw, I think it was the president of, I believe, Argentina, and someone had taken it. I'm sure it took days or weeks for them to do the translation, but they did. They lip synced it and took his voice and so the English that he was doing sounded like him, looked like him saying it. And I just realized that, we're a couple years away from that being live, like where that's just going to happen and you're not going to, of that level of quality. A lot of the translations and the audio and stuff like that can be all live now. But the morphing of his face so that his lip sync is perfect, I think is probably at HD quality is probably still a little ways away.
Next question.
Vic Hernandez in Springfield, Missouri asks, if you were interviewing someone by Zoom for a non-creative position, would you be more impressed by a simple, elegant background or something that shows what they're passionate about, like a couple of great photos?
Chris Fenwick, what's your thoughts?
It's interesting. In a job interview, there's a lot of things that you can't ask somebody. You're just by law, at least in the States, there's certain things you just can't ask. And the idea of being interviewed via Zoom at your home is sort of a little, window to the world, if you will, of who this person is. I think if you want to be transparent and you think that your lifestyle would impress the potential employer, I would just absolutely have an open camera. I think that if you have a bunch of secrets you're trying to keep, you might think twice about it, though.
Nigel DeSalle.
Yeah, I find when I'm interviewing people on Zoom, they tend to fall in one of two groups. Do I have the domain skill to interview that person technically about what they're capable of, marketing, business type stuff? Or do I not have the domain skill, accounting, legal or something? And I'm interviewing them because I'm trying to work out whether they're going to work well with a team, whether they're going to work well with me, whether they're going to be people who'll be fun to be around. And to some extent in both, I'm looking for genuine people. I'm looking for people who come across in a way that I think is going to strengthen the team and make us more effective. If you have a blurred out background, I spend most of the call wondering what's behind and wondering what you're hiding. And if you have, pictures on the wall behind you of hunting, shooting, fishing, I wonder all sorts of things, either good nor bad. So I think it's actually really important to take a picture of your frame, particularly if you're interviewing, and stare at it and say, what should the person deduce about me, right or wrong, from the picture I'm sending out? And I think what we most want is people who are authentic. And so you want to put stuff around you that is authentic to you. And something is better than nothing, but nothing is better than hiding who you really are, or at least making it look like you're hiding who you really are.
I will just note that my wife just landed what she considers her dream job. It took more than 5 months to go through the vetting process and the rest of that. But the very first thing in the very first Zoom meeting she heard from people were, wow, what a nice office you have. It's her home office here. And it's 99% because of what I've learned on office hours, that we were able to get her telepresence up at a level like that. And I don't know whether that was one of the key moments in her process of this incredibly difficult 5 months in getting this job, but it sure didn't hurt. So I'm a great believer in that. Chris, you wanted to come back in on this?
Yeah, I was going to say, Nigel, what you said about staring at the background. We've all seen those examples of people who, it's like, what did I leave on the shelf back there? That's incredibly embarrassing. Nigel, would you ever consider, you said does this person work well with others? Would you ever consider staging an interruption into the Zoom interview? Where like somebody else pops in. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, this is Alex from our team. Alex, what's going on? Hey, I just wanted to double check. Did you do the thing? Yeah, I did. Okay, great. All right. Courtney, back to you. Sorry. Thanks for dropping in, Alex. Would you ever consider doing that just to see if it flusters them?
So I don't think I would, because I don't think it's terribly authentic.
I just think it would be fun.
I think I have a very structured way of doing interviews around a set of things that I'm looking for, which I call content, approach, network, hunger, and presence. And so I've learned to ask questions that would achieve what you just said by, can you give me an example where you would? And that's as close as I think I would get to that.
Alex?
I think I don't remember who the CEO is, but I love they would take every prospect out to lunch. And what the prospects didn't know is that they were making a decision about whether they put salt on their food before they ate it or after they ate it. If they put salt on their food before they ate it, they wouldn't hire them. Like literally just, we're done, because they're making decisions before they had tested it. They had decided that they always, and it was like, that's not the kind of person that I want in the company, is to make decisions before they've actually have data, so anyway, I thought hiring is a very complicated thing. I have to admit, because I do so few, I have almost never interviewed anyone other than someone I know, bring somebody that they know over and we talk a little bit, or it's somebody, it's one of those things that's so organic. I just don't, the way I work, that it'd be hard for me to figure out what that actually looks like. But I will say the key to a lot of this, I turn my system up and down based on who I think is going to be there. Like this mic will go out of the space or whatever if I feel like I'm going to make them uncomfortable. And so I actually switched to a DPA headset because it just looks like some kind of, if you don't know what it is, then it's not, but it doesn't look like a big mic. And I'll turn some of the lights off and other things like that. So there's, you do want to make sure that that your system looks good, but if it looks too good and it looks like you're working too hard, then that becomes another problem.
Yeah, and somebody just used the word authenticity. One of the things my wife told me before that first Zoom meeting is she said, listen, I'm just at the point in my career where I'm tired of trying to be what they want, and I'm just going to be me. And over again through this 5-month process, I heard, well, this is who I am. They like it, they'll hire it. If they don't, they won't. And she'd stopped trying to be something other than who she was. And that seems to have worked perfectly. I think that authenticity comes through for anybody. Just thoughts. Next question.
Bobby Rafferty in Central Florida asks, what NVMe enclosures do you recommend and use?
And Ronnie Hofsoy is going to start us off here. Ronnie?
Well, I feel there is a lot of information to be wanted in this question. For instance, is this Windows scenario or Mac scenario? What type of interface is your preferred interface? Like, is it USB or is it Thunderbolt? And what version of these interfaces is the most? Is it being stationary on a working desk or in a server room, or is it portable? And I've been doing a lot of soul searching and, of course, surfing on the net to find out of these things the last year. And what I found out, for our needs, we're moving towards Thunderbolt 5 on the newer Mac machines. And one of the best that I found, which is also one of the coolest ones, so temperature is really important if you're having large devices in these. You need to have a really, really good cooling. And I don't need a fan blowing my hair back. I have less hair these days. But the Express 1M2, etc. From OWC is the one that I've landed on. And they have a few other like the Envoys and similar, and we are definitely going for Thunderbolt 4 for now, and then moving towards Thunderbolt 5 in just 6 or 7 months or something like that.
Alex Lindsay.
Yeah, we're big fans of the OWC versions of these, and so this is the M2, and then the one that I have sitting right next to my desk is it just jumped away. I feel like. I do feel like this is, there we go, the Express 4 M2. So the one that I edit off of typically, it seems like many of my stuff is about less than 8 gigs. This is the newer version of it. I have a darker version of it, but it's the 4 M2 is the other one that I use relatively often. Both of those I'm super happy with.
Courtney Gooden.
Yeah, I also agree with the OWC Express 1M2. And there's another one that I found that's on available. It's a little cheaper and it's higher rated. And it's this Acasis 40 gigabit M2 NVMe. It's $79. Remember, Prime Day is coming up tomorrow, is it? Starting tomorrow, maybe next couple of days. This one supports Thunderbolt 3, 4, 5, USB 4. 3.2, 3.1, so it's got a lot of compatibility under there. It supports a variety of drives, and it's $79. So I have not tried this, but it looks like a good deal. So maybe I'll pick one up on Prime Day coming up this week.
Hey, don't forget, it's Monday. That means Extra Hours happens tonight for those of you for whom this show may be a little uncomfortable time-wise, and everybody else who just wants to tune in. That is the show where we gather in the evening, 6 p.m. Pacific time, for a more office hours type content. We have other special shows too. On Thursday, The Rundown with David Paskin hosts another panel. So there are other things to do. Check it all at officehours.global. Next question.
Pedro G. Gonzalez in Nashville, Tennessee asks, what are some recommendations for rental houses for audio gear in Nashville, Tennessee? Speakers mostly for outdoor gigs, sub 400 people.
Alex Lindsay, thoughts?
I don't actually have a recommendation for this, but I will say that it's a very competitive market. Anybody that's surviving in Nashville, there's a lot of them, and anybody who's highly rated is probably going to do pretty well if you can figure out if they have what you need. I think the only people that we've worked with directly for rental is True Audio, which is True Audio is amazing everywhere. so anyway, so they to get some, but that's more like mics and wireless and stuff like that. So, but I don't know of any. I'm just looking at. There's a map of lots of rental. I mean, you're in it's Nashville. There's a lot of people putting up little speakers. So I think that CMAV, Stage Right Sound, Nashville Audiovisual, these are all going to be, I mean, look at them there, but it's a pretty heavily it's pretty heavy market for what you're looking for. Maybe one of the heaviest in the United States.
Courtney Gooden.
Yeah, I agree. I also concur with True Audio. They just bought Location Sound. So they merged with Location Sound, and Nashville is their home office, so they're located in Nashville. So you can get all kinds of AV equipment. I don't know if they're that strong on sound reinforcement stuff. They may be able to recommend somebody in Nashville that they work with for doing speakers and, basically sound reinforcement.
Next question.
Paul Walhus in Austin, Texas asks, SeeMo 4K for Android connects to a camera via HDMI to an Android device via a USB-C cable, enabling the transmission of a 4K video signal at up to 30 frames per second. Will it work with the Sony ZV series?
And Alex will help you out, I hope.
I think this is a handshake issue where it's gonna handshake with the Android phone. It's not necessarily going to handshake with the USB-C that's coming out of the ZV series, but the ZV series has an HDMI out, so I'm not sure why you would use a USB output from the ZV series rather than the micro HDMI out. The one thing I will say about the micro HDMI is make sure you have a cage and make sure you have the little fixture on the cage that holds that cable, because it's a very small connector and it's really easy to break. Ask me how I know.
Not a good story. Next question.
Matt Halverson in Brookings, South Dakota says, I had a AA battery leak some acid on the retention spring in my Zoom recorder, and then it wouldn't work. I tried to clean the acid off with a file, but what else can I use? Any chemicals?
Courtney Gooden, can you help?
Well, cleaning it off may not be your problem. Sometimes the acid will actually dissolve the traces on the circuit board that connects to that battery adapter or battery holder. So look closely to see if there's any kind of break, because that acid can cause the metal to degrade to the point that it will break or dissolve. And so you may have to run a little jumper wire to cover the little gap in the line. So you might have to do a little testing to see if there's continuity between the connectors in the battery and the place on the circuit board where it connects. So you may have to disassemble the unit to do that. And I don't suggest that for a Zoom recorder because they're very tiny. It's like opening your still camera and trying to work on it. That's more in line for professional. But if you use a little solution, R5, basically the contact cleaners that are out there, Deoxit, those kind will clean the debris off from the leaky battery. But if it has attacked the metal, then you may be in trouble.
Next question.
Paul Walhus in Austin, Texas asks, for drone shots at sunrise and sunset, what are the best practices for managing exposure and light as lighting changes rapidly? Is it better to lock exposure or ride the ISO and shutter, or use auto exposure and fix it in post?
And we're going right back to Jason Bache for an answer here. Jason?
Okay, Paul, it depends. If your drone can shoot RAW, this matters a little bit less, but any experienced drone pilot already knows the moves that they're going to do, and they should never mess with their exposure over the course of their moving shot. So a good drone pilot will start where they need to be, hit record, get the shot they need, hit stop, get the next shot they need, hit record, and so on and so forth. And if they're going to make any changes whatsoever, it's going to be during those pause times. So it's kind of a moot point.
100% agree. There's nothing that has frustrated me more than having a camera on auto, iris, or any other auto setting, and then seeing a shot unfold and start changing from the camera when I'm trying to correct it to a single standard. That means that almost every frame I have to apply a slightly different correction to get the results I want, and it's a nightmare. End up in rotoscoping land. Alex, your thoughts?
Yeah, just make sure to shoot and log. So you just you want a lot of room there. This is where 10-bit log makes a big difference.
Yeah, and set things and forget them, get the shot, and then you can treat the whole thing in post as one unit and fix it as necessary. Next question.
Coming in from the QR code, Reina Dopapopoulos in Situate asks, should we use a DSR 4X1 to get extra things into our switchers? We already have one, but can get more. The other choice is a V1 or V2, but they are much more expensive and do more than we need since we just need inputs with no latency.
Alex is going to help you. Alex?
So I guess the question is that are you using SDI or HDMI? Are you using? I'm assuming it's SDI. The version of the DSR 4X1 that I know of is SDI. And at that point, I would start really thinking, if I start wanting to put more things into my switcher, I'd really be thinking about a router. That's what that's built for. So like a Blackmagic router. I mean, we have lots of them. and they're going to be very near zero latency. And I wouldn't be adding lots of little boxes. I would either have a larger switcher, as Mickey recommends, or I would get a router for it. If you don't have a router in your system, then I would highly recommend it. You'll buy a 12. I guess Blackmagic now makes 4x4s or 8x8s, but I find that for me, if you give me 20x20, I'll fill it up very quickly. 40x40 will take me a month to fill it up, and then it's all full. So that's the thing you have to kind of be careful of, is that as soon as you have a router, you'll understand what you can do with it, and you'll start adding monitors and adding other things, and it just opens up a whole set of possibilities for you.
Well, the main show interface is the best way to get your questions in. If you just have a quick one and want to get it in, you can type askofficehours.global. I just tossed up the QR code in the bottom of the screen here. That's askofficehours.global. Put that in your web browser, and that kind of gets you into the quick show queue. Somebody will take a look at it, and it can react pretty quickly. So that's askofficehours.global. Let's go to our next question.
Tommy Chance in St. Paul, Minnesota asks, what's on your shopping list for Prime Day?
Oh, Nigel, do you have anything you're looking for?
So the answer is no. I spent some time surfing around the site, and I think sort of 2 or 3 things are happening here. Most of what they want to sell me starts with the word Amazon. So if you're looking for another Amazon something, that might be a good time to buy it. The second thing, this has happened so often that I have more batteries and more things I sort of can comfortably store anymore. So I'm well up with consumables. And the third thing is I might keep an eye on the day to see if there's anything sudden that I really wanted. But at least for me, the excitement and use of this has really worn off.
Courtney Gooden.
Yeah, I almost always pick up a few Fire Sticks and any of the Amazon stuff because it'll be 50% off on the Prime days, any of the Amazon hardware. The Fire Stick 4K, it's my primary streaming device on my Samsung TV, so I already have several of them. I've got 3 or 4 of them that are unwrapped still. But bear in mind, when you order those streaming devices or any of the type of Amazon, tablets, things like that. They, if you have a Prime membership, because you'll get the best deals from a Prime membership on Prime Day, they will license that. They will preset those streaming devices to your account before they ship them, which is I always find strange. Maybe they do it by just serial number or something, but when you get it out and plug it in, it's already set up for your particular account. So be careful if you're buying a lot of those things, which I like to do and give them away for Christmas presents or party favors, because they're just that cheap. You can get them, a good 4K streaming stick for like, $29. So it's a good deal. And they work quite well. The 4K streaming stick plus, I have not had any problems. Full speed 4K, no problems. And it works interactively with all of their voice-activated controls on just about everything, my phone and the Alexa and a variety of things. So I always pick up those things. But I have to look in the box back there and see how many I've unwrapped back there. So remember, you may have to have them closed out and added to another person's account when you give them away as a gift, because they'll be on your account when they open them up and plug them in.
Let's go to the next question.
Paul Walhus in Austin, Texas asks, what's your strategy for managing and archiving massive data from a multicam 4K production? BRAW, ProRes, what are the pros and cons of cloud storage like Alteon.io versus on-premise LTO or NAS solutions?
Big topic. Alex Lindsay will take you into it.
Well, it depends on what you think of as massive. So for us, an average shoot will generate 8 to 12 terabytes of footage. Like it's just kind of like that. And so I don't know if that's massive to you or that's just kind of something that kind of passes through the system here. So you have to kind of think about what that looks like. I will say that from a cost perspective and an access perspective, the problem is putting that much. You put 8 terabytes on any online thing. There's a cost to it. But there's also the issue of downloading again. So if you want to get it, how long is it going to take you to pull that back down? I will tell you that, I have for many years used a primary and a backup of raw drives. I have a little what we tend to refer to as toasters here. I got 2 of these, and I copy it from the source, not to one drive and then from one drive to the other drive, but from the source to each drive to back them up. I keep them in separate places geographically most of the time. I mean, usually at the beginning, it doesn't stay that way. I try to deliver it to the client as fast as I can, but I keep those. These raw drives are very inexpensive, and if you use good naming conventions and you use a database program that will scan them, you will be able to find things very fast. And I know that eventually hard drives can go bad, but that was not our problem. Our problem was at the end of Pixel Core is that I had 2,000 disks that all were still good. I think that, and then we put them in little cassette things that look like little cassettes, and we put them on the wall. We label them on the outside, and we were able at Pixel Core with 2,000 disks able to find something in the last 8 to 10 years inside of 15 minutes, and have it online very, very fast. So I don't, I know there's a lot of other ways to do it. I have had, I've lost stuff with LTO, so I'm not a big fan of LTO, and it takes a long time to pull stuff out. And we found that these raw drives, I've used it for over a decade, and I have not, knock on wood, not lost a bit. Doing it that way, and so that's kind of what I'm still using for deep stuff. I don't save old stuff to NASs. NASs are what I would call nearline stuff that I may need right now. When I'm done with a project, I put it on offline, and that is the thing. There's online, and that's what I use these little RAIDs for, or other RAIDs where I need it to be over 2 gigs a second because I'm working with it.
Nigel?
Yeah, you need a different strategy for archiving than you do backup and recovery. Archiving is a very, very specific thing, and Alex, I think, described very well the way to archive things for later use. Backup and recovery is a different thing, and it's much more an operational thing. And as ever, the trick is not backing up. The trick is recovering. And what you have to do is practice not only the backup, but the recovery. And you have to do it often enough that you know that when you really need it, it's going to be there. If the first time you try and recover is when you have a catastrophe, it won't work.
Chris Fenwick had some thoughts.
It is my experience, firsthand experience, that most of the products and services and stuff are they're designed around FUD, fear, uncertainty, and doubt. And if you have been given the responsibility of spending somebody else's money, and a lot of it, then there's a bazillion consultants out there that'll tell you exactly how to do it. But I'm with Alex on the raw drives. We use these little boxes from Tap Plastics. This is archive number 306. I have a hard time imagining 2,000 drives, Alex. I think that's...
we built a wall. It was like a whole shelving of... It was inside the archive room. For Pixel Core, we had a full-time archivist. Their only job was to manage... We would be dropping drives off to them all the time, and their job was to give us back our working drives and put it in somewhere that makes sense. So, but it was a wall of tape.
A lot of chat about this.
That was our on-site one, by the way. There was a storage area where the rest of the stuff went, just in case we burned down.
I'm actually
been a lot of chat
of this. A special rack of drawers that'll hold about 200 drives, I think.
Yeah.
It's my next.
I never had that many, but we always had a lot. The chat, Mickey said a typical workflow for the DIT offloading. That's the digital intermediate technician, or nowadays sometimes called the digital ingest technician on set. they do at least 3 drives, one of them being an LTO. One copy goes with production, one goes to the post house, and one stays with the DIT. The post house then ingests a copy to at least 3 more copies, often with SANS and LTO. So you can see that even at the top of the movie-making profession where Mickey is and in other places, they spend a lot of time and resource on protecting data, and there's a lot more chat there if you're in the chat to catch up with. Next question.
Brian Carney in Wheaton, Illinois asks, it looks like I inherited a bricked Blackmagic pocket camera. Is it now considered a paperweight with a nice 4/3 lens?
Courtney Gooden, thoughts?
I guess it depends on how old that pocket cinema camera is. The original pocket cinema camera, the big ones that take the 2.5-inch drives. Yeah, I'd leave it as a paperweight. The newer ones, there is a recovery mode that you can boot into. You have to disconnect all the power from it, all the batteries, all the external, and then you power for a while, and then you power it up holding down the focus button, I believe. That puts you into recovery mode, and you can look online. You can find a list of the instructions on how to enter recovery mode, which lets you reflash the firmware. But make sure you download the firmware for that particular model of camera and the year that it came out. Because if you flash the wrong firmware into it, it will turn into a permanent brick. So maybe somebody has done that to it before they gave it to you.
Yeah, and I had one die on me. I actually took it into the process, sent it back to Blackmagic in Northern California. They looked at it for a while, thought they had been able to fix it. They, I think it was a $400, a little under $400 fix. They did say there was a cap. If they had to replace the standard board, it was $700 or $800. You may want to decide whether or not that was worthwhile. Anyway, it came back. It worked for a day and a half, and then it stopped working again. And Blackmagic was very good about it. When I indicated that I had a problem, they just said, yeah, it looks like what we're going to be able to do is not going to fix it. So they refunded all of the money that I had paid them for that intermediate step, which I thought was pretty classy of them. But now I have a paperweight that the lens has been removed from. So anyway, sometimes equipment goes bad. Next question.
Bosco Jones in Madison, Indiana asks, when moving large media projects, do you use SSDs or mechanical disks? What are the minimum connection speeds for transfer and for uploads?
Alex Lindsay.
It depends. The only time I'm using mechanical drives is when we're doing this last offline backup. Anytime life is too short to wait for a spinning drive to copy files. It is such a huge difference between the two that usually when we're on site and we're trying to move things from one place to the other, we want to have typically an NVMe RAID, something like what I just showed you, or something else that is going to. And we have clients that will bring those little hard drives that are 5200 that are like the tiny little, and we ask them ahead of time what they're going to bring, and then we make a decision about what we'll bring so that we can say, hey, I know you brought those, but we'll just give you these, because literally it costs me less money to buy them the drive, copy it, and give them the drive than the hourly it takes for the person that I have there to write the drive. So I think that's the issue.
Chris Fenwick.
What did you say? Life is too short.
Life is too short
drives
for spinning drives.
That's a T-shirt. Can we make that be the next office hours T-shirt?
Yeah, exactly.
I tell you, all I do is edit. Right? All I do is edit. I'm never in the field. I don't care. I mean, you're going to do whatever you want to do at your location. And if you took the time to put it onto a spinning 5,200 RPM drive from the 90s, whatever. I'm going to transfer it into my system and it'll never be so slow again. I'll do it overnight, whatever. But if I had a choice, everything would be really fast little SSDs. And I do have a collection of drives, because edit suites are the places where your missing drives go to die. So they're in my drawer. I'm just going to tell you flat out. As a matter of fact, Alex, I think I may have a couple of yours, and I apologize. and I will get them to you eventually. I'm so sorry.
I was going to send Vinny over to have him picked up.
You can send your Vinny over, not a problem.
Alex, did you want to come back, or is that
it? The only thing I would say about when you deliver drives, and we were told this by lawyers at a very large company, that they were very touchy about wanting to send the drives back to us. And I asked them why, and they said, because if you give us the drive and we keep the drive, it's a taxable event. and not a taxable event on the drive, a taxable event on the event, like all the money that was spent in there. And this is a California, they said it's a California thing, but they said it's a California company. If you're a California company, you have to be very careful of giving drives. So we would always put on, please return the drives back to us. And people thought we were cheap, but it was just because of this legal, we just want to make sure we didn't cross that boundary because those tax numbers would be really high. We never asked for the drives back.
You should put a QR code that sends you to a web page that explains, look at, I don't want the damn drive. Sorry.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't want the stupid drive. Just here's why.
Don't ask.
Exactly.
Just don't forget, if you value what we do here, there are a few ways you can help us. You can like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can volunteer at officehours.global. Volunteer, meet some really nice people and learn a lot, because I think all of us who are volunteers here have learned a ton by doing that. You can also become part of the team that makes it possible or just kind of help us by donating at officehours.global/donate. We're a 501c3, so we would appreciate the assistance. Next question.
Paul Walhus in Austin, Texas asks, what's your approach to saying no to a client's request that is unfeasible, out of scope, or creatively detrimental while preserving a positive relationship with said client?
Good question. Nigel Dessau is going to start us off here. Nigel?
A lot of it really depends on what that relationship looks like and how you work together and what your history is. And by the way, I think each of those three things you would manage differently, out of scope, creative, or saying no. So, if it's out of scope, then you can have all sorts of conversations about, oh, that's a really great change. How would you like me to manage that in the change process? So lots of this will depend on the relationship. But I was struck by a thought, which was this. Early on in my career, I worked for IBM, and I had a Japanese client. And Sada-san decided that I needed to be educated in the ways of the world. And for 3 years, he educated me in how to do business in Japan and with Japanese clients. And I learned lots of really useful lessons. But the one I remember most is he said to me, never say no to anybody. He said, instead, what you do is you go, oh, I will go and investigate. And you come back later and you go, I have investigated. I am unable to fulfill your request. So never give loss of face to the client. And in many ways, I've actually used that slightly less as I said it, that I never try and say no outright to anybody who's a client. I tend to say, let me go and investigate. Let me understand. Here's the best way we could do it, or here's an alternative. But saying no to some people just gets you nowhere.
Alex Lindsay.
I almost never say no. It's yes, and this is how much it's going to cost to do it. Everything's time and money. I had a client ask once if I could do it. They had some money, and they said, "Well," I said, I told them everything was time, money, and they said, "Well, how much does it take to do a live stream from the moon?" And I said, "With a person or just with the camera?" And he goes, "Oh, just with the camera." I said, $20 billion in 10 years. Like that's the number that I need to put that to make that actually work. But to me, everything's time and money. It's not, so if someone asks me to do something, now but Paul's like, what if it's unfeasible? I'm like, I don't know. I've done a lot of things that seemed like they were unfeasible. So I mean, I just charged a lot. I had to do a point-to-point connection to homes in Syria with 48 hours of notice. In a place that, that was being shelled, and we did it. It was $50,000 for 8 minutes. But we figured out how to, I had to like call someone and have them on a plane before I even knew how I was going to do it. Like just get to Istanbul and we'll figure it out. And so, being willing to do that, but you have to, the problem is you have to really know how you're going to get from one place to the other. You have to have done this enough to understand what you can do. Now, inside of a time frame, the inside of the time frame may be like, well, we can't do that there. And by the way, Nigel, the Japanese thing that we were all often given was that would be very difficult. That would be like you'd ask for something and go, and that meant no. Like, no, we're not going to do that. But that would be very difficult. It was what we would get.
Courtney Gooden.
Well, in this case, the calendar is always your friend for production coordinators or producers that hire independent contractors or independent workers. They know that you're an independent worker and you accept jobs from a variety of different clients. So what I do is if it's an undesirable I'll find out as much as I can about the project. Then I'll ask, I find out about the project first. What is it? Where is it? How long is it shooting? And then I ask them, what dates is it? And you go, let me check my calendar. And after you hear it, and they're saying, well, it's at the beach, 3 days at the beach. And I go, oh, I don't want to haul my equipment through the sand and get the salt on it, But you don't tell them that. You say, well, let me check my calendar. And you go, I have a first hold that overlaps those days. So let me check with them, and I'll have to get back to you. And then you look at all the requirements that they have, and if you think it's out of scope beyond something you just don't want to do, then you just call them back, apologize, and say, well, I'm sorry, the other company booked me, so I won't be able to do your job. And that way you save face. They understand a conflict, and they won't hold it against you next time a job comes up. They won't realize that you may turn them down because A, you don't like to work with that director, or you don't like to work in that location, or you don't like to work nights. There's a million reasons not to take a job, and you don't necessarily want to let the producer know up front that you're turning it down for personal reasons. Just say, hey, I'm sorry, I've already booked on those dates. And that gets you out and saves face for both.
Next question.
Our own Ronnie Hofsoy in Tromsø, Norway says, we're going to IBC in September. Not sure if we would be going live, but if there's any interest, we could bring equipment. Anyone care to join us from around the world?
For those of you who might be listening who don't know, we've always covered these events whenever we can and whenever there's a crew available, so Ronnie must be looking for that. Ronnie, you want to say more about what you're planning on doing?
Yeah, just a few short. For those that doesn't know what IBC is, it's a convention show halls, 14 innovation halls with more than 1,350 exhibitors, and we're really. This is the first year the whole company is going down to Amsterdam, and we will. This is kind of a call for action to see if there are any interest among the many office hours around the globe. Maybe we could do some broadcast from inside the halls if we get enough people to join up.
Let's ask Alex. Alex?
I'm definitely interested in coming in remotely. I'm not sure if I can make it actually personally, but I think it'd be really interesting to have a couple hours there. I think the challenge we've always had with IBC is the nature of the RAI. Is that you got to kind of pick somewhere you're going to cover. Kind of like we spent most of our time in the central hall. You got to pick where you're going to cover because it's just such a big and unwieldy place. I've learned to like it, but I never know where I am. Like I just kind of just wander around until I find the next thing.
Next question.
Kenny Hampton in Greenville, Illinois asks, I've been seeing some ads for an alternative to Zoom for musicians, cleverly named Mooz. Any info about this service?
I don't know of any. We have heard about these kind of things before. Latency and live music over the internet has always been a challenge for anybody wanting to do like group remote music stuff. Alex, your thoughts?
Yeah, I'd be interested to see what they're using for. This is their website here. Hold on, let me. So here you can see, it's designed very specifically. It does look like it has, so what they've done that's a little different than just using Zoom is they have additional, the ability to do a lot of additional like little bits and bobs that you might need for that. I don't know how much of this is built in, but it looks like they have a fair bit of control to control tempo, key. So this is very specialized. To lessons. I think that it's funny. I talk to my daughter about this a lot because she takes a fair number of lessons in different instruments, and she just doesn't like. She wants to be in the same room. But I do feel like you would get. I'm interested in looking at this because I feel like you would get a much better. You can get a hold of much better teachers oftentimes, especially if you're in a smaller market, if you can get them over Zoom. But the other side of that is that most of the teachers, I think part of her problem is most of the teachers that when you log in, they know a lot about how to play guitar or drums or bass or whatever. They just don't know a lot about webcams. And so I think that is another piece of the puzzle is trying to make sure that the platform can be great, but are the teachers taking it seriously and do the students have what they need to do that as well. So I think those are the two other big challenges, but it does look very interesting to have much more specialized tools that are built just for for this type of thing.
Thank you to everybody who's involved in this show every single day, to our producers, those of you who put questions into the show. We can't do this without you, so thank you so much for driving everything at what we do at Office Hours. For the panelists who show up every single day and add their expertise to this process, thank you, thank you, thank you. It's amazing to have access to so many people with so much experience who are very much at the top of their fields and have them just share their information freely. And to our amazing back-end crew, the people who are quietly working in the back. You will see some of their names, a subset of the names on the credit scroll at the end of the show, but there are a lot of other people who are behind the scenes making this all possible every day, and our huge appreciation goes out to each and every one of the people who are involved in helping us put Office Hours together. The Talak traversal today, if you had been going around to ask people these questions, you would have had to travel 43,000 miles. That is 69,000 kilometers, or 341 million bananas for scale. It's Monday. Don't forget extra hours tonight. We'll see you tomorrow.
No, Amsterdam is the Vegas of Europe, right?
With canals
Yes.
and
Something like that, yeah.
bicycles.
I would say that
Bicycles
it's a
everywhere.
fair bit nicer than Vegas.
Way nicer.
I thought that was Nottingham.
What's incredible about Amsterdam is it's so flat. You can just walk. I mean, I would walk from the Rye back to my hotel that was downtown, and it's like 8,000 steps or something
Whole
like that.
country,
But
an
it's-
average is like negative sea level, right? It's below sea level.
Yeah, I'm just looking at footage from there.
They have all those dikes and windmills and stuff.
Yeah, I remember the Final Cut user groups, the annual thing they had there in Amsterdam. It was crazy.
Super meats.
Sound devices used to have a Heineken experience. So at the top of the Heineken, they have a beer, and they teach you how to My brother and I were the best at pouring the beer, in case you're wondering, out of the little things.
How to walk a straight line when you're blackout drunk.
We did get lost on the way home, but yeah, there was a lot. It was a lot.
Or
going on.
drum bicycling with all the bicycles in Amsterdam.
Yeah, exactly.